Hey, welcome to the DFS Build UFL edition. It's taken a long time this year, but finally putting out the first video for a UFL a DFS breakdown. Very volatile league if you don't play it already, but it's a lot of fun. It's still football, kind of. I will say one thing, like our UFL DFS picks, you can access them on Patreon, $5.99 a month, plus access to our Discord and everything else we offer. Very low rate for everything we offer, but they've been really good. Like DFL, I keep highlighting great plays. I had Corbin and Hall last week, both absolutely smashed. I was definitely looking to be in great shape personally. And then Bryce Perkins, 40% owned, has been smashing every week. It just was just an auto play, really. It's like just like playing like Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen in the UFL. And he just was randomly scratched for no reason for some ankle injury that he supposedly has. Point is, the reporting for UFL is not good. And the contest, like DraftKings provides for UFL, also not always the best. Like this week in particular, they're very bad. So there's a major downside to UFL. And number one, like it's definitely a pro variance sport, like MLB is, as far as like it's not really super predictable beyond the top players. So like I definitely like to pay for the good players, and then after that, you have to kind of dig. But also bad news and bad contest selection. That said, all of that means one major thing, and every DFS player should be excited to hear, is edge. That means you have a massive edge if you are on somebody that other people are not, if you are privy to some kind of rumor or news that other people don't catch. Like if you somehow knew 40% owned Bryce Perkins was not going to play, or you just thought, 40% Bryce Perkins, I'm not going to do that, and then it worked out to your favor, you could have had a massive, massive advantage on the field. Like my lineup was so good last week, even with Perkins, I almost cashed, which is just absurd. Anyways, the hope is to keep that going and put it out in video format. And then if you want to get extra advice for this and other things, hit up our Patreon linked below this video. If anything I do here just in general helps you out, please give the video a like and also subscribe to the channel. Both those things at the very least help me out. And then if you are subscribed to us, you're going to catch all of our MLB videos, everything for NBA and anything else we do. And also in Patreon, we offer MMA and WNBA DFS picks too. So if you are interested in that, come on in and let's get it going. All right. So I'm just going to go position by position, highlighting the top plays and just talking about who I like the most for the slate. Up top at quarterback, Jordan Ta'amu. I mean, he's been awesome. Like, excuse me, there's nothing bad to say about Jordan Ta'amu at all. Seems to be the front runner for MVP in the UFL at this point. He's had 22 plus fantasy points in each of his last 5 games, 19 plus fantasy points in each of his last 6. He is feeling it. He offers dual threat upside. He's also been specifically crushing it as a pure passer, which is honestly not something I thought he would be able to do, judging off of like past years of him in these amateur pro leagues, but you know what I mean, non-NFL leagues like the UFL and XFL and that kind of thing. He's always been okay, former Ole Miss product, but did not expect him to be so good that he'd be up to 11K on a given week. But he's been awesome. I love him a lot. I have no problem getting to him just because, like I said before, in UFL DFS, it pays to go get guys you know are going to play, you know are productive, and of course, if they have good matchups and stuff, that also helps. And he certainly does this week. He's facing a Houston defense that has flashed capability at times this year, but in general, they rate out as a pretty good matchup for him. And he's just been on fire all year, and I don't really expect that to change this week. Only issue, of course, there's 2 of them. He is owned, coming in with the highest ownership at quarterback at 21%. And, of course, he's very expensive. But he does have the best projection. He's got the best floor and ceiling. He's the best point per dollar play at the position. And 21%, like it's not great, but as far as a UFL slate goes, I don't think it's so bad. I think if you want to just go get like a really, really good play at quarterback this week and not think twice about it, Jordan Ta'amu is a very good play. I don't have a problem with that. However, I like to just gain an edge anytime ownership is really going to flock in one spot. You don't have to go along with what I'm going to do, but my favorite thing to do is to go get Max Duggan, second best projection right after Jordan Ta'amu, but he's like over $1,000 cheaper and not nearly as owned. Projecting for 8%, means if you're going to do like a single entry or a big contest, there's going to be sharp players and stuff. So It doesn't mean he will be 8%. It just means he's probably going to be about half as owned as Jordan Ta'amu. And to me, that's enough edge to the point where, like, I'm probably not losing a ton of points. I'm probably not losing a ton of ceiling, but I'm saving a little bit of money, and I'm getting a guy who has dual threat ability, has been playing really well, 21 plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. He's done that in each of his last 2 games. He's got a decent matchup in front of him. So everything looks pretty good for Max Duggan. He's another guy, former TCU guy, flamed out in the NFL with the Chargers. Nobody really expected him to make the Chargers by any means, but talented player. And now he's getting a chance to kind of like refine his passing ability, and it's kind of clicking for him in the UFL. So all things considered, I think he's the better point per dollar play. Well, not point per dollar, but you know what I mean? I think he's a better value when compared to Jordan Ta'amu. Those are my 2 favorite plays at quarterback, but I like Duggan more, and he's my favorite quarterback play of the slate. I think there are some other interesting guys here we can look at, but I do feel like the quarterback situation in particular, like especially when you start talking about the whole Bryce Perkins thing, it's volatile as heck. Like, you don't know if a guy's going to get benched. You don't know if some random injury you don't know about is going to pop up. You don't know if they're going to play 2 quarterbacks in the same game. These teams do that sometimes. So those are situations I tend to like to avoid. I think the only other guy that I feel good about, like Jamar Smith is interesting because he's unowned and he does have a ceiling. But like Alex Magoo, I think, is back for his team. So I'd be a little bit hesitant to buy into him. The only other guy really is Luis Perez at 9.4K. He's actually started to turn it on a bit lately. 20 plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games, 26 last week. Like, his team is like not really getting it done. He's lost 4 straight games, but they've been in every single game. And in 3 of those games, he's had 24 or more points. Like, the offense is doing its job. They are just not closing out games. But Perez is not like a very high ceiling guy in general, but he's been producing, and he's way cheaper than Ta'amu is. One other guy I will mention, and kind of in the same breath together. So Danny Etling and Bryce Perkins, they played for the same team. Etling took over for Perkins with the ankle thing, and last week Etling was very good with 21.9 fantasy points, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. He also has dual threat ability, pretty good athlete. If Etling starts and you know, Perkins is for sure out, Etling's a good value at 9.5K. I would prefer Etling over Perez based off a ceiling. I think Perez is a little bit safer. Plus, you just never know, like, oh, do they let Etling start while they kind of try to protect Bryce Perkins, but then Etling struggles and gets benched for somebody else, or Bryce Perkins comes in? Like, you just really don't know with UFL. That's why I just prefer to play it safe. But then there's also a scenario like Perkins could just randomly start now this week, and Perkins has been a machine. If I knew for a fact that Bryce Perkins was going to start this game just like last week and basically the last 5 weeks, I would be all about him. He's had 20 plus fantasy points in each of those 5 weeks that I said. Major dual threat ability, really good mobile passer. He's really good on the fly, creating magic out of broken plays. So just got to see if like he's actually going to play. There's been no real news on him. So right now, I would imagine Danny Etling is going to be under center. And because of that, Etling and Luis Perez are kind of like in that same boat. But right now, I go Duggan, Ta'amu, and then Etling, Perez. You'll just have to monitor, you know how it shakes out from there. Not really that interested in anybody else at quarterback. I do like to keep a pretty tight pool overall. It's not a very big roster for UFL DFS, and I don't really want to take chances on guys if I don't need to take chances on them. Like, if we're looking at the quarterback, you know, Ta'amu's chalky, McClendon's pulling ownership, but I would rather, instead of playing McClendon, I would rather just go pay 500 or 400 more for Etling or Perez, go get 700 more, go get Duggan, or just go all the way up and get Ta'amu. So you can do that. You can play McClendon. He's pulling the second most ownership on the slate. But if I'm going to be eating a chalky quarterback, it's going to be Ta'amu on this slate for sure. All right, let's move over to running back. Running back is definitely a position where I want to play. I don't want to say necessarily a chalky guy, but I want to play a guy that I know is going to get the rock. The funny thing is, I was off of Jacob Saylors last week, and it burned me big time. He's been super, super expensive. If you see here, actually, I'm looking at it. I'm not sharing this, but I'm looking at his game log, and like every game, he's been over 10K. In the first 3 weeks of the year, he was really good with 16 plus fantasy points. He had 4 straight weeks of just turd level production, 10 or lower, under 10 fantasy points every single game. And then finally, I was like, you know what? I know he's got a great role. I know he's usually pretty productive, but he's so expensive. He's so popular, and he's been bad. So I was just done with him. And then, of course, he pops off for the most rushing yards, I think possibly that he ever had, 118. Certainly the most he's had this year. He had 24 fantasy points. So I'm back in on Jacob Sailors just because his price came down a little bit. He's got the top projection in the slate. He's still not the highest owned running back on the slate. And then also you have the fact that he's got a great matchup in front of him. And yeah, everything just looks good. So I'm back on Team Sailors. Going to be still a little bit chalky at 30% and 9.5K. Certainly not cheap, but I'm more than willing to just eat whatever little chalk that is and just roll with them, because we know for a fact Jacob Sailors can get it done, and we know he's going to get like 15 touches if the game is close and they're able to give him the ball. So big in on Sailors. The other guys that we really want to pay attention to here are going to be Tawa for Michigan. He's had a really nice role. Let's see. He comes in as a second most expensive player. I don't think his ownership's crazy, though. Yeah, only 19%. So I suppose if you look at the price and you don't want to pay for Sailors and you want to bet on Sailors having a down week, you could pivot to Toa for sure. Save $500 and play a guy who's going to be maybe half his owned. I still would go Sailors there. And if I'm going to also look at somebody like Day Hunter, who's coming in with the second best projection and very much the most ownership at running back at 65%, I do have interest in Day Hunter for sure. Day Hunter has been very, very good. He's only 7.7K, and he's had over 10 fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 games. Pretty darn rock solid role, very involved as a receiver, 5+ targets and 4+ catches in each of his last 3 games. So nothing wrong with Day Hunter. Solid matchup too against Memphis. And the only thing is the ownership for me. Like, Day Hunter's got second best projection, really nice role. Don't have any fear about him. I think he'll either be just decent and he won't like probably bury you, or he'll have like a ceiling game and actually be pretty necessary. The hope for me is that at 65% ownership, I can pivot to somebody else, and like Day Hunter is just like okay, and instead of like nuking. So that's my first lean at running back. Like, I'm cool with eating the Sailors chalk at 30%. Not that cool with eating 65% Day Hunter. I always want to say grain of salt, of course, because I'm just kind of speaking, thinking out loud as far as like how I want to approach a slate. Like, if you go in and you're like, oh, hey, is Day Hunter a good play? I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. Great roll, 7.7K, massive savings compared to somebody like Jacob Sailors. But then if you're like, oh, well, he's 65% owned, I'm like, oh, shit, let's do something else because that's crazy. And one of the things you can do is go get Deshaun Corbin, who is almost the same exact price. He has also a massive role, and he's going to be like a third is owned, coming at 22%. So he looks awesome. Deshaun Corbin, 25 carries, 143 yards last week, 24+ fantasy points in 2 straight games. I don't really get it. I don't get how like his ownership is just not there. And I'm curious to see like if we update it going into Friday's first game, if that's going to change. But right now, he's basically the same price as Corbin, has as good, if not better role, and he's not nearly as owned. Certainly an argument to be made to fade Sailors and Toa and go just pair these two 7.6 and 7.7 runners. That's also a strategy. I don't have a problem with that at all. But I just think Sailors and Corbin pairing for me is going to be probably the most interesting. A couple of the guys that are chalky that could be viable that I don't mind are going to be Deion Jackson and Deneric Prince. Injuries have opened things up for them greatly. Deion Jackson's on DC. 8.3K, he's gotten 10 carries in each of his last 3 games, not super involved as a receiver, so kind of needs to find the end zone to hit. And at 8.3K, like, I just like the roles of Day and Corbin more, so I'd rather do that. I'd even rather go $700 up and go get Toa over him, especially if he's going to be more owned than all those dudes. Like, that's just the way it's projecting right now. Deneric Prince is interesting at 6.6K, though, because he plays for Memphis and they don't have any real competition for him right now. 12 carries last week, 17 the week before. It just all depends on game flow. Like, can he get fed? He had 6 catches 2 games ago, 4 catches 3 games ago. So pretty involved as a receiver. nice, shifty, explosive back. Like Derek Prince almost made the NFL. Like he is pretty talented. I don't mind him. The problem with Prince has always been volume and like high level production. It just hasn't really been there yet. So at 6.6, we can take that chance. If you want to roll the dice on 6.6K Deneric Prince, you can. The only issue is you're not going to be alone. He's 29% owned. So for me, that's a good time to just be like, I'm going to ignore Deneric Prince this week and find my value elsewhere. Or, at least at running back, just look at the guys that I feel really strongly about. And in summary, it's obviously Sailors. I don't mind A.J. Hunter at all if you want to play him. I just want to get away from that chalk. And Jashawn Corbin is the other guy that I want personally. All right, let's wrap things up here. I'm not going to talk about defense because it's a total crapshoot. The best defenses can be horrible. The worst defenses can return 2 touchdowns. Like, it's just bullshit. It's just like they're all relatively, cheap. Like, you can play anybody if you want to build a narrative. I think when I'm building a defense, you want to look at 2 things. You want to look at what defense can I pair with my running back? So that way my running back's milking the clock, my defense is up, they're winning the game. They probably did something to get there. Or you are looking at targeting an opposing offense that sucks or turns the ball over or gets a lot of sacks or gives up a lot of sacks, that kind of thing. Actually, trying to guess it, though, is not really something I want to do right now. I kind of just highlight, use an optimizer like Roto Grinders, and I highlight the guys I like the most. I try to go over and under based off of, what I'm talking about now. And then whatever defenses it poops out, like, I'm fine with that. But at wide receiver, there are certainly some situations that we can take advantage of. First of all, though, again, like, I do not want to fade really good chalk. And one really good chalky play, actually, he's not even chalky. It's not even about chalk. It's about salary. Justin Hall is freaking insane, dude. Justin Hall is 9.7K. So if we look at just price, then Justin Hall is like probably a bad play on this slate because he's almost 10K. And in the UFL, the whole passing game situation can be very volatile because, these aren't NFL caliber quarterbacks. They're not super consistent most of the time. And obviously he's playing on Houston, and Houston is, they got McClendon, who's chalky. So, you could argue you could take advantage of that chalky factor of McClendon maybe producing to a degree. But again, sometimes the wide receivers can benefit from a positive, game script, and the quarterbacks maybe don't. Whatever the case may be, Justin Hall is 9.7K coming off a 16-target game where he had 24 fantasy points, and he is not owned. He's 12% owned. Just massive ceiling with this dude. And this isn't like this is the only game he was good. In his last 5 games, he has 11+ fantasy points in 4 of 5, 15+ fantasy points in 3 of 5. So we know he has a massive role with them. He's the number 1 option in their passing game. And I'm just going to take the shot on 9.7 with no ownership that he is going to stay like super involved. And I'm just gonna hope that goes my way. If you don't want to do that and you want to save some cash, totally understandable. There's still a lot of guys who are not that far away from him in terms of projection. Tyler Vaughn's is gonna be very chalky for Arlington, 44%. Like right away though, like that's another reason for me to just go up and get somebody who's 1.6K more, has a better projection, a way better ceiling, a proven role, and is like completely unowned by comparison. Or you can pivot to somebody like Jonathan Adams, who we know is very involved with Memphis, projects a little bit better than Tyler Vaughn's, is only $400 more, and is going to be about half as owned. Same story with Chris Rowland, 8.8K, only $700 more than Vaughn's. Moral of the story here, Adams, Vaughn's, Rowland, those guys all look really good. I have no problem with them whatsoever. Perhaps if you compare them in with Justin Hall, you can play them all together. You could fade Jacob Sailors, take some value at running back, and get as many of those guys as you want. The point is, I don't really want to eat 44% Tyler Vaughn's chalk, so that's just the first step here for me at wide receiver. I'm just not going to do that. So whether it's paying all the way up for Justin Hall, my personal favorite, or just pivoting to one of these other guys, I think right away you're gaining an edge on the field. So if Tyler Vaughn's just doesn't wreck, you are in pretty good shape. He's been really good last 2 games. 8+ targets in each of his last 2 games, 3 total touchdowns, 22+ fantasy points. Like, I can't knock him at all. he's been really good. I'm just going to bet on somebody else and not on him. That's just what I'm going to do. Malik Turner's price at 9.1K feels a little bit steep for his projection. He's not owned, so I don't really need to give you much of a sales pitch against him. He is playing with Michigan, so like if Bryce Perkins came back, like his ceiling will be elevated. Maybe his projection would spike. And Danny Etling's been good enough to the point where like you can still play him and Mariner. Like you can do that. I just don't really want to do that personally. I think Powell's a solid value at 7.5. Kiki Chisholm at 6.7. He's a solid value. But honestly, my favorite value at wide receiver of the entire slate is Hakeem Butler. 7.8K Hakeem Butler. He's had a very, very shaky season because he started the year with like a hamstring injury. He just was never the same. So certainly health-wise and like productivity-wise, he has not been that dude. But he's already shown us that he can be, because back in week 5, he had 29 fantasy points, very explosive, major red zone threat. And he finally got going again last week with 5 targets. His quarterback situation has been kind of up and down. But now we have our boy Max Duggan kind of rounding into form. He's been playing a lot better. So I like the Duggan Butler pairing. And I totally understand if you don't want to also slide in Jacob Sailors with those guys and just like go full St. Louis here. But I do not mind those 3 together if you get there. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. But Butler just has an immense ceiling, and nobody's going to be on him. If Butler can actually activate here and go drop 30 fantasy points like he's definitely capable of at 7.8 and with no ownership, that is a slate breaker. Like everybody else is kind of like the same. Like I'm not like drawn to anybody beyond that. I'll just note a couple of value guys that do stand out. We have Jalen Moore at 4.8. We have Davion Davis at 5.3. Who else? Let's see. There's a couple other guys that were D. Anderson, 4.6K, Justin Smith at 4.7. Those guys specifically, very volatile, very up and down, but they've had some nice spike weeks in recent weeks. So those are a couple guys as far as like saving some cash that I do not mind going and getting. And there's one other guy that did something recently. I think it was Cade Johnson. He's been a little bit involved recently. In 3 of his last 4 games, he's at 11 plus fantasy points. 6 targets in 2 of those 4 games. So definitely up and down, definitely volatile, but only 3.6K for Birmingham. He is another guy, another value that I do not mind just taking a chance on and then going out and loading up elsewhere within my lineup. Okay, so that's a lot of shit being said over the course of 22 minutes here. Point is, I want to gain an edge here, and it's really easy to do. So I'm just going to, make some of those plays. If you're just doing one lineup, I would just head over to my Patreon and get my top picks and just go there. If you're doing a lot of lineups, I would take anything I said in this video and kind of stretch it out and then manipulate the ownership a little bit based off of rotor grinders or whatever you have. I don't know what other platforms have UFL ownership and projections. I know Rotor Grinders does a great job with them. I've been finding success with it, so I think you can as well. All right, that does it for me. Hopefully this helps you out. If it does, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, come check us out on Patreon and in our Discord. But no matter what, hopefully you cash in UFL this week. And thanks for watching and good luck.